Jessica Carter was exhausted. As a single mother, life was already hard, but taking care of her 8-year-old daughter, Lily, made it even harder. Lily had cerebral palsy, which meant she needed extra help for almost everything: eating, dressing, even moving around the house. Jessica loved her daughter more than anything, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't do everything alone. Jessica worked full-time as a hospital receptionist. She had to be at work early in the morning and often came home late. Every day, she rushed between work and home, always worried about Lily. Some days, she barely had time to sleep. She knew she needed help. One night, after Lily was asleep, Jessica sat at her kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. She was searching for a nanny, someone kind, patient, and experienced with special needs children. But every ad she saw made her nervous. Could she really trust a stranger with her little girl? Still, she had no choice. She started making calls, speaking to different nannies, and checking reviews. After days of searching, she found someone who seemed perfect. Her name was Sarah Evans, a 35-year-old woman with over 10 years of experience in childcare. She had glowing reviews from other families, and most importantly, she had worked with children like Lily before. Jessica scheduled a meeting. The next afternoon, Sarah arrived at Jessica's house right on time. She was tall, with warm brown eyes and a gentle smile. She wore a neat sweater and jeans, giving off a calm and professional vibe. Jessica felt a little more relaxed. "Hello, Mrs. Carter. It's so nice to meet you," Sarah said cheerfully. Jessica smiled. "Please, call me Jessica. And this is Lily." Lily, sitting in her wheelchair, looked up at Sarah with curiosity. Sarah knelt down to her level and spoke in a soft, friendly voice. "Hi, Lily. It's very nice to meet you." Lily didn't say much, but she gave a small smile. That was a good sign. Jessica watched closely as Sarah interacted with Lily. She asked questions about her routine, her likes and dislikes, and her medical needs. Jessica explained everything carefully: how to lift Lily safely, how to help her eat, and how she loved bedtime stories. Sarah listened closely, nodding and asking good questions. "I understand," she said. "Lily seems like a wonderful girl. I'd be happy to help." Jessica felt a wave of relief. Maybe, finally, things would get easier. After talking for almost an hour, Jessica made her decision. "Sarah, I'd love for you to be Lily's nanny. Can you start tomorrow?" Sarah's face lit up. "Of course. I can't wait." That night, Jessica went to bed feeling hopeful. She had done her best to find the right person. Sarah seemed perfect. Maybe, for the first time in years, she could breathe a little easier. But Jessica had no idea that her worst nightmare was just beginning. The next morning, Jessica woke up feeling hopeful. For the first time in a long time, she believed things might get easier. Sarah was supposed to start her first full day as Lily's nanny, and Jessica was relieved to have found someone who seemed so kind and experienced. Sarah arrived exactly on time, wearing a warm smile. "Good morning, Jessica." "Good morning, Lily," she said cheerfully. Jessica smiled back. "I really appreciate you being here, Sarah. It means a lot." Sarah knelt beside Lily's wheelchair and spoke softly. "Are you ready to have a fun day, sweetheart?" Lily looked at Sarah, blinking her big brown eyes. She didn't speak much, but after a moment, she gave a small nod. Jessica felt her heart lighten. Maybe this was going to work out after all. Before leaving for work, Jessica went over Lily's routine one more time. Her food is in the fridge, her medicines are in the cabinet, and her favorite toys are in the basket, she explained. Sarah nodded. "Don't worry. I'll take great care of her." With that, Jessica kissed Lily goodbye and headed to work. At the hospital, Jessica felt strange. For the first time in years, she wasn't rushing home on her lunch break to check on Lily. Instead, she sat at her desk, sipping coffee and staring at the clock. She knew she should feel relieved, but something in her gut made her uneasy. Was she just overthinking? She decided to text Sarah. "Jessica, hey, how's everything going?" A minute later, Sarah replied. "Sarah, everything's great. Lily and I are having a wonderful time." Jessica sighed with relief. She was probably just nervous because she wasn't used to leaving Lily with someone else. When Jessica got home that evening, she found Sarah sitting on the couch, reading a book while Lily played with her stuffed bunny on the floor. "How was your first day?" Jessica asked. Sarah smiled. "Lily is such a sweetheart. We had a great time. We played with her toys, listened to music, and even did some stretching exercises." Jessica looked at Lily. "Did you have fun, Katie?" Lily didn't say anything, but she nodded. Sarah stood up. "Well, my first day went smoothly. I think we're going to get along just fine." Jessica felt a wave of relief. "Thank you so much, Sarah. I can't tell you how much this means to me." Over the next few days, things continued to go well. Sarah always arrived on time, followed Lily's routine perfectly, and even stayed late when Jessica needed extra help. She brought new sensory toys for Lily, read her bedtime stories, and was always cheerful. Jessica started to trust her completely. But then, something strange happened. One night, after Sarah left, Jessica noticed Lily acting differently. She was quieter than usual, avoiding eye contact, and clinging to her stuffed bunny more than normal. "Lily, are you okay?" Jessica asked gently. Lily didn't respond. She just hugged her bunny tighter. Jessica frowned. Maybe Lily was just tired. Or maybe she was still getting used to Sarah. She decided not to worry. After all, Sarah was great, wasn't she? What Jessica didn't know was that something was very wrong. And soon, she would find out the truth in the most shocking way. Over the next few weeks, Jessica tried to ignore her worries. Sarah was doing a great job. She was always on time. She took good care of Lily, and she never complained. Jessica should have felt lucky to have found someone so reliable. But something still felt off. Lily, who used to smile and giggle when Jessica came home, now seemed quieter. She clung to her stuffed bunny more than before and didn't meet Jessica's eyes as often. At first, Jessica thought Lily was just adjusting to the new routine. But as the days passed, she noticed more strange things. One evening, when Jessica walked in from work, she expected to hear Lily's favorite music playing, like usual. But the house was silent. Jessica frowned. "Lily? Sarah?" Sarah stepped out from the kitchen, smiling as always. "Oh hey, Jessica. We were just about to clean up." Jessica walked past her and found Lily sitting on the floor, staring at nothing. Her bunny was in her lap, but she was gripping it tightly, her tiny fingers white from holding it so hard. Jessica knelt beside her. "Hey, sweetheart. Did you have a good day?" Lily didn't say anything. She just nodded slowly. Something didn't feel right. Jessica turned to Sarah. "She seems a little quiet today." Sarah laughed lightly. "Oh, she's just tired. We played a lot today." Jessica forced a smile. "Right. That makes sense." But deep down, it didn't make sense. Lily loved playing. She was never this quiet, not even when she was tired. A few days later, Jessica noticed something even stranger. She came home early from work one afternoon, hoping to surprise Lily and Sarah. She unlocked the door quietly and stepped inside, expecting to hear Sarah's cheerful voice. Instead, she heard something else. A sharp voice. Cold. Impatient. "You have to do it, Lily. Stop making things difficult." Jessica froze. That was Sarah's voice. But it didn't sound like the warm, kind woman Jessica knew. Slowly, Jessica walked toward the living room, careful not to make a sound. She peeked inside. Sarah was kneeling in front of Lily, holding a spoon near her mouth. Lily's face was scrunched up in fear, her hands shaking. "I said, open your mouth," Sarah muttered. Her tone was nothing like the sweet, caring voice she used when Jessica was around. Lily whimpered but didn't move. Jessica's heart pounded. What was she seeing? Was Sarah really speaking to Lily like that? Jessica took a deep breath and stepped inside. "Hey, what's going on?" Sarah jumped up so fast she almost dropped the spoon. Her face changed in an instant. Her cold expression vanished, replaced by a bright fake smile. "Oh, Jessica, you're home early." Jessica's eyes darted to Lily. Her daughter looked terrified. "I heard you raising your voice," Jessica said slowly. Sarah let out a nervous laugh. "Oh no, it wasn't like that. Lily was just being fussy with her food. I was trying to encourage her to eat." Jessica didn't believe her. Not for 1 second. But she didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, she walked over and picked Lily up, holding her close. Her little body was trembling. Jessica knew something was wrong, and she was going to find out exactly what it was. That night, Jessica couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. She kept thinking about what she had seen earlier. Sarah's sharp tone, Lily's terrified face, the way her tiny hands had trembled. Was she overreacting? Was Sarah just having a bad day? No, a mother's instinct was never wrong. Something was off. Jessica knew she needed proof before making any accusations. If she was wrong, she could ruin someone's reputation. But if she was right, she needed to protect Lily. She decided to act. The next morning, Jessica went to work as usual, pretending everything was fine. But instead of staying at the hospital all day, she left early without telling Sarah. She wanted to see what was happening when she wasn't around. Jessica parked a few houses away from her own and walked quietly to the front door. She took a deep breath before unlocking it slowly. The house was silent. Too silent. Jessica stepped inside, making sure not to make a sound. She heard a noise from the living room. A soft, muffled voice. Then she heard Sarah. Her voice was cold and impatient, just like before. "I don't have time for this, Lily. Stop being difficult." Jessica's heart pounded as she moved closer. She peered through the gap in the door. What she saw made her blood run cold. Sarah was standing over Lily, holding her by the arm, not in a gentle way, but too tightly. Lily looked frozen with fear, her stuffed bunny on the floor. "Eat," Sarah ordered, pushing a spoon toward Lily's mouth. Lily shook her head, whimpering. Jessica couldn't stay quiet anymore. "Sarah," she shouted, stepping into the room. Sarah gasped and jumped back, dropping the spoon. "Jessica, what are you doing home so early?" Jessica ignored the question. She rushed to Lily, kneeling beside her and wrapping her arms around her daughter. Lily buried her face in Jessica's shoulder, her little body trembling. Jessica looked up at Sarah, her voice shaking with anger. "What were you doing to her?" Sarah's face turned red. "I was just trying to get her to eat. She was being stubborn." "By grabbing her like that?" Jessica's voice rose. "By scaring her." Sarah opened her mouth to speak, but Jessica didn't let her. "I want you to leave. Now." Sarah's eyes widened. "Jessica, wait, you're misunderstanding." "Get out of my house," Jessica snapped. Sarah hesitated, but then she grabbed her bag and hurried to the door. Before leaving, she turned back. "You're making a mistake." Jessica didn't reply. She held Lily tighter, listening as Sarah's footsteps faded away. As soon as the door closed, Jessica pulled back and looked at her daughter. "Baby, are you okay?" Lily didn't say anything, but she clung to Jessica, her little fingers gripping her shirt. Jessica felt a lump in her throat. She had almost trusted the wrong person. She had almost let someone hurt her daughter. She wouldn't make that mistake again. With shaking hands, she reached for her phone. It was time to call 911. Jessica's hands trembled as she dialed 911. Her heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear the ringing. 911. "What's your emergency?" A calm voice answered. Jessica took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I need to report someone. My daughter's nanny. She was mistreating her. I just caught her grabbing my daughter and speaking to her in a threatening way." The dispatcher's voice became serious. "Is your daughter safe now?" Jessica looked down at Lily, who was still clinging to her little body shaking. "Yes, I made the nanny leave, but I don't know what else she's done. My daughter can't fully express herself, and I need help." The dispatcher reassured her. "Officers are on their way. Stay with your daughter and don't let the nanny back inside if she returns." Jessica hung up and wrapped her arms around Lily. "It's okay, baby. I won't let anyone hurt you." She rocked her gently, whispering comforting words. But inside, she was furious, with herself, with Sarah, with the fact that she had trusted the wrong person. How long had this been going on? Had Sarah been hurting Lily in other ways? Jessica's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of sirens outside. Minutes later, 2 police officers stood in Jessica's living room. One of them, Officer Miller, took notes while the other, Officer Diaz, knelt to Lily's level. "Hi, sweetheart," Officer Diaz said gently. "I'm here to help. Is it okay if I ask you some questions?" Lily didn't answer, just held onto Jessica's shirt tightly. Jessica stroked her daughter's hair. "She's scared. She doesn't talk much with strangers." Officer Diaz nodded. "That's okay. Do you mind if I check her arms? Just to make sure she's not hurt." Jessica hesitated for a second, then nodded. Carefully, Officer Diaz examined Lily's arms. Jessica held her breath. There, on her tiny wrist, was a faint red mark. Jessica felt her stomach drop. Officer Miller looked at it closely. "You said you saw the nanny grab her." Jessica swallowed hard. Yes, she was holding her too tightly, forcing her to eat, and I don't know what else she's done when I wasn't home. Officer Diaz nodded. "You did the right thing calling us." Jessica let out a shaky breath. "What happens now?" "We'll file a report and investigate Sarah Evans," Officer Miller explained. "We'll check if she has any past complaints. In the meantime, you should keep an eye on your daughter for any other signs of mistreatment. If she shows fear, flinches, or has more unexplained marks, let us know immediately." Jessica felt a mix of emotions, relief that she had acted, but also fear that she had almost let this go unnoticed. Officer Diaz handed her a card. "If she tries to contact you or come back, call us right away." Jessica nodded, gripping the card tightly. As the officers left, she sat down on the couch with Lily, holding her close. "Mommy's here. You're safe now." Lily let out a small sigh and nestled against her chest. Jessica knew one thing for sure. She would never ignore her instincts again. But she wasn't done yet. Tomorrow, she was going to find out everything she could about Sarah Evans, and she was going to make sure no other child ever suffered under her care. Jessica barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lily's scared face, Sarah's cold voice ringing in her ears. How could she have trusted that woman? She knew one thing. She couldn't rest until she knew everything about Sarah Evans. The next morning, after making sure Lily was comfortable, Jessica grabbed her laptop and sat at the kitchen table. She started searching online. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Sarah's social media accounts showed a smiling, friendly woman. There were photos of her with children, some from years ago. On the surface, she looked like the perfect nanny. But Jessica wasn't convinced. She dug deeper, searching for Sarah's name in news articles, job reviews, and online forums. And then, she found something. A parenting forum had an old post from a mother in another town. The title made Jessica's breath catch. "Warning: do not hire Sarah Evans as a nanny." Her hand shook as she clicked on it. The post was from 3 years ago. A woman described how she had hired Sarah to care for her son, who had autism. At first, Sarah had seemed wonderful, kind, responsible, patient. But then, strange things started happening. The boy became more withdrawn, more afraid. He had unexplained bruises. When the mother installed a hidden camera, she caught Sarah yanking the boy's arm and speaking harshly to him. Jessica's stomach turned. The woman had fired Sarah immediately, but because the marks on her son weren't serious, Sarah hadn't faced legal consequences. Jessica's pulse raced. This was a pattern. Sarah was careful. She worked for families with children who couldn't easily communicate, so her actions often went unnoticed. Until now. Jessica's jaw clenched. She needed to expose Sarah before she could hurt another child. Jessica called the police station and spoke to Officer Miller. "I found something," she said, her voice firm. "There's another family who had a bad experience with Sarah. She was accused of mistreating a special needs child." Officer Miller sounded interested. "Can you send us the link?" Jessica quickly emailed the forum post. "You need to look into her past. I don't think this is the first time." "We'll investigate further," Officer Miller promised. "And if we find enough evidence, Sarah Evans could face serious charges." Jessica hung up, her heart pounding. She wasn't finished yet. She went back online and posted in local parenting groups, warning other parents about Sarah. Within hours, her post got dozens of comments. "Oh my God, I almost hired her last year. She worked for a friend of mine. They said something felt off but didn't have proof. Thank you for speaking out. We need to protect our kids." Jessica realized just how many families could have been affected. Her phone buzzed. It was Officer Miller. "We found records of at least 2 other complaints against Sarah in different towns," he said, "but no charges were ever filed. That might change now." Jessica closed her eyes and let out a breath. They were finally going to stop her. She turned to Lily, who was watching cartoons, her bunny tucked safely in her lap. Jessica walked over and kissed her forehead. "No one will ever hurt you again," she whispered. She had trusted the wrong person once. She wouldn't let it happen again. Jessica felt a mix of relief and anger. She had discovered the truth about Sarah, but the thought of what could have happened to Lily made her stomach twist. She had to be strong, for her daughter and for any other child Sarah might try to hurt. Later that afternoon, Jessica received another call from Officer Miller. "We need you to come to the station," he said. "We have some updates." Jessica's hands tightened around her phone. "Did you find something?" "We can't say much over the phone," Officer Miller replied. "But let's just say you were right to trust your instincts." Jessica's heart pounded. "I'll be here soon." She arranged for her neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, to watch Lily while she went to the station. "Don't worry, dear," Mrs. Thompson assured her. "Lily will be safe with me." Jessica gave Lily a tight hug. "Mommy will be back soon." "Okay." Lily nodded, her bunny tucked under her chin. With one last look, Jessica headed out the door. At the police station, Officer Miller and Officer Diaz sat her down. A thick file sat on the table between them. Jessica swallowed hard. "What did you find?" Officer Miller opened the file. "We dug deeper into Sarah Evans. She's moved around a lot, always working as a nanny for children with disabilities or communication challenges." Jessica's jaw clenched, because those kids can't easily tell anyone what she does. Officer Diaz nodded. "Exactly. And in each case, families reported odd behavior, children becoming fearful, refusing to eat, unexplained bruises, but no solid evidence." Jessica's hands tightened into fists. "So she got away with it every time." "Until now," Officer Miller said. "Your report, combined with the other complaints, has given us enough reason to bring her in for questioning." Jessica's breath caught. "You mean we're arresting her today?" Jessica let out a shaky breath. Finally. That evening, Jessica was at home with Lily when she got another call. "She's in custody," Officer Miller said. "We questioned her about everything, and though she denied most of it, her past is catching up to her. With your statement, plus the reports from other families, she won't be able to work as a nanny again." Jessica closed her eyes, relief washing over her. "Thank you." She hung up and looked at Lily, who was sitting on the couch, playing with her bunny. Jessica sat beside her and pulled her close. "It's over, sweetheart. You're safe now." Lily snuggled into her, letting out a small sigh. Jessica kissed the top of her head. She had trusted the wrong person once, but never again. From now on, she would listen to her instincts. and she would make sure no one ever hurt her daughter again. Days passed, and Jessica finally felt like she could breathe again. Sarah was behind bars, and more families were coming forward with their own stories. The weight on Jessica's chest slowly began to lift, but she knew the damage Sarah had caused wouldn't disappear overnight. Lily was still quiet. She smiled more now, but she clung to Jessica tighter than before. She didn't like to be left alone, even for a moment. Jessica knew her daughter needed time, and she would be patient. One afternoon, Jessica sat on the floor beside Lily, who was coloring. "Sweetheart, would you like a new nanny?" she asked gently. Lily's grip on her crayon tightened. She shook her head. Jessica's heart ached. "It's okay. Mommy will stay with you as long as you need." Lily looked up at her, then crawled into her lap, holding her bunny close. Jessica wrapped her arms around her, silently promising that no one would ever hurt her again. A week later, Jessica received a call from Officer Miller. "I wanted to update you," he said. "Sarah Evans will be facing charges for child endangerment. With all the families coming forward, she won't be able to work as a nanny again." Jessica let out a slow breath. "That's good. I just wish it hadn't taken this long." "I understand," Officer Miller said. "But you stopped her. Because of you, she won't hurt another child." Jessica nodded, a lump forming in her throat. After the call, she sat with Lily and told her softly, "She's gone now. She won't come back." Lily didn't say anything, but she relaxed a little. It was a small step, but a step forward. A month later, things started to feel normal again. Jessica found a new nanny, a kind, older woman named Mrs. Avery. She had glowing recommendations and years of experience. But most importantly, Lily liked her. The first time they met, Lily didn't hide behind Jessica. She even let Mrs. Avery read her a story. Jessica watched with a smile. Maybe, just maybe, they were healing. That night, as Jessica tucked Lily into bed, she kissed her forehead. "I love you, sweetheart." Lily, in her small, soft voice, whispered, "Love you, Mommy." Tears filled Jessica's eyes. They had been through so much, but they had made it through. And from now on, Jessica would always trust her instincts, because a mother's love would always protect her child.